In this video, we will understand what is the short-run analysis of supply. So let's understand the diagram that we see in front of us. So in the diagram, OX represents the quantity of goods sold. Price and cost is represented on the OY axis, or rather the Y axis. E1 and E2 are 2 points on the supply curve. Now there's a dark line, a black line in a diagonal manner on the diagram that you see here, and that represents the supply curve. In the perfect competition, the firm supply curve is that part of the marginal cost curve where the marginal cost curve is rising from the average variable cost curve. Now, when you look at that line here, that line is in sync with the supply curve itself. Now, it is in sync with that because if you look at the three conditions in the bottom, it says that price is equal to the short-run marginal cost. The short-run marginal cost is not decreasing, and the price is greater than the short-run average variable cost. So in a perfect competition, remember that the supply here is going to be equal to the cost in order to maintain equilibrium. What that means here is, you, just like the other suppliers, do not want to make a profit because you fear that the customer is going to say no to your product, and because he's going to say no to your product, you're going to keep the cost equal to the price itself. Now, because you're going to keep the cost equal to the price itself, the supply curve E1 and E2 is equal to the short-run marginal cost. That's why you see that the short-run marginal cost and the supply curve intersect and they become just one line. The average variable cost, which is represented in that sky blue line, doesn't have any significant importance as of now, but we will get to that in some time. So let's go back to the explanation here. In a perfect competition, the firm supply curve is that part of the marginal cost curve, and the marginal cost curve is rising from the average variable cost curve. That is, that black line that you see here is now becoming a part of the average variable cost. For a price taker here refers to a firm that gets to decide what is the price of a product. For a price taker, the supply curve has the same shape as the marginal cost curve. Now, I told you it has the same shape here because you are keeping your price equal to the cost. In the diagram, at point E1, the price P1 is the cost. Then this is the shutdown point because the revenue AR is less than the average variable cost. So what happens is, if the price of a product is below the cost, of course the firm is going to shut down. In other words, if I were to sell something at a price of 10 rupees, but the cost of making it is 15 rupees, of course the firm isn't going to do well. Here, all the three conditions of short-run equilibrium are fulfilled. As stated a few seconds ago, price is equal to the short-run marginal cost. Short-run marginal cost is not decreasing. Price should be greater than the average variable cost. So what this means is, in the first part, let's understand. The price should be equal to the short-run marginal cost. For example, it costs me 10 rupees to make one extra unit. I'm going to keep the price equal to 10 rupees itself. I'm not going to play around with that. And then the short-run marginal cost is not decreasing. In any circumstance, you will never see that the cost of a product is going to decrease. It is going to reduce a little, as you see in that point of that golden star in the bottom, and then it's always going to shoot up. In the third case, the price is greater than the average variable cost. The variable cost here refers to the cost that is employed by considering variable factors of production. Now let's understand this. Assuming you are an organization wherein you are manufacturing goods because the festive season is coming forth. Because the festive season is coming forth, you have told your laborers that you guys need to work about 2 hours extra in order to keep production active. Now, if these laborers have to work for 2 hours extra, you have to pay them for that extra working hours. That payment you will make for those extra working hours is what you're going to include in the pricing factor here. And that is why you're going to make sure that the price that you're going to charge for the consumer is greater than the variable cost that you have incurred in manufacturing that product or service. If the price increases from P1 to P2, as shown, the quantity increases from Q1 to Q2 and the price line AR and the short run marginal curve intersect at point E2. So what happens is, remember, the law of supply says the more it is that you want to sell, the more will be the price that you charge for that product. And keeping that in mind, the exact situation is seen here. That is, you're noticing that the cost of the product, or rather the price of the product, has gone up, and therefore the quantity sold of that product has also gone up. In other words, if the price is going to be P1, the quantity will be Q1. If the price is going to be P2, the quantity is going to be P2. Thus, when the price increases, supply also increases. So this is what happens in the short run analysis of supply. Now, let's move on to understand what's going to happen in the long run analysis of supply. In the long run analysis of supply, you notice that there can be three situations: shutdown point, normal profit, and break-even point. In the diagram, x-axis represents the quantity of goods sold, price and cost is represented on the y-axis. E1 and E2 are 2 points on the supply curve. The price is equal to the long run marginal cost of the firm. Now remember, this is similar to the previous case where the price is going to be equal to the cost. If the price rises to P2, then the long run marginal cost and the price line intersect at point E2. That is, you're able to see the same thing happen here. When the price goes up, so does the point of equilibrium as well. That is, initially it's going to be at E1, but later on it's going to move up to E2 because the price has gone up. If the price rises to P2, then long run marginal cost and the price line intersect at the point E2. At this point, the quantity produced increases to Q2. That is, the supply increases. Remember, you're just following the law of supply here. To reiterate that, the law of supply says the more is the quantity you try to sell, the more is the price at which you charge. So the producer here realizes that, hey, the customer is ready to pay more. If he is ready to pay more, let me increase the price, at the same time increase the quantity in which I'm trying to sell here as well. That is, the supply increases. If price falls to P, then the firm cannot manufacture because it is below the shutdown point. Now remember, I told you there are three situations that can happen here, and in the previous case as well, we saw something called as the shutdown point. A shutdown point is a situation where the price of the product is lower than the cost of the product. The previous example I told you, the price of the product is rupees 10, but you are spending rupees 15 to make that product. So obviously the business is not going to be feasible in that situation. The long run supply curve is in bold. That is, you're able to see that dark line E1 and E2, and starts when the long run average cost is minimum and goes above the long run marginal cost. Now here I've moved the long run marginal cost a little to the side, but they're actually in sync with the same. I moved it a little to the side because long run marginal cost is given greater importance than compared to short run marginal cost. Now, you have three situations like I stated before. The first one is the shutdown point. A firm produces if price remains above or equal to the average variable cost. Below the short run marginal curves ABC, it is called as the shutdown point. In the long run, it is the long run marginal cost curve. So here, remember, when you consider the point of variable cost, I told you that if you are having your laborers work a little bit extra number of hours, the money that you pay to compensate their extra working hours is added onto the price. Because remember, whatever money that you've invested in fixed assets has been recovered long ago. Now it's the variable assets, the money that you're spending on these variable assets that need to be recovered. We're not talking about the machinery that you invested once upon a time. We're talking about the laborers who are working extra hours due to the festive season. So because they're working extra hours in the festive season, you need to pay them more. I do not know if you've noticed this, but during the festive season, there is actually an increase in prices of goods and services. They do that because their variable cost has gone up and they add that to that price. And we, the consumer, pay that extra price in order to procure those goods and services. So in the shutdown point, like I stated, a firm produces if price remains above or equal to the average variable cost. That is, I'm okay with making if the cost of making it is rupees 10 and the price at which I'm selling it is rupees 10. Below the SMC curves ABC, it is called as the shutdown point. That is, if the cost of making it is 15 and I'm pricing it at rupees 10, I'm here in the shutdown point. Normal profit. A firm will earn normal profit if its revenue can cover costs. A firm could have used some inputs for another purpose to get additional returns. This return which is lost is called as opportunity cost. So you should not confuse this as I spent 100 rupees, I recovered 100 rupees. You should consider it as what if I spent 100 rupees on something else? What would I have made during that time? For example, during the festive season, if I focused on only one festival and if there are 3 other festivals which are also important and I still focused on only one, what is the money that I could have made if I focused on the other festivals as well is what you refer to as an opportunity cost. Now, opportunity cost is not an actual cost that you're going to incur, but you understand it as what if. I know many of you would have told yourself this. What if I had pursued another career? What if I was studying something else? So that what if is given a value in terms of cost, which you call as an opportunity cost. So normal profit will be equal to the total revenue minus the total cost. It is a situation of zero profit. Anything more than the normal profit is called as supernormal profit. Break-even point. Now this is the third situation which you could incur. It is the point where the firm earns a normal profit or revenue equal to that of the cost. The firm's total revenue equals the cost. The firm can stay in the industry and has no incentive to leave either. New firms cannot enter either because there is no incentive to enter the industry. The break-even point here simply refers to you decided to start a business and just to make sure that you recover the cost of starting that business, you ended up selling something at the exact price at which the cost of making it was considered. So that is, you decided to say, for example, start selling pani puri in front of a busy area. You invested 5,000 rupees in starting that little stall, and in one day itself you were able to recover the entire 5,000 rupees. That is a situation of break-even point. In the previous case, remember, you consider what if. In this case, you are not going to consider that what if point. So this is how you understand the long-run analysis of supply. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any queries, do let me know and we can get back to you on that. Thank you.